Hello and welcome to another insightful episode of the Unthinkable Tech Podcast, the go-to source for the pulse on technology that is shaping our future. I'm your host Anmol Satija, and today we are going to talk about a business dilemma that's been a real head scratcher for many businesses out there. As we all know, companies in pursuit of operational cost efficiency have eagerly migrated from traditional on premise infrastructure to the seemingly boundless realm of the cloud. This move was expected to revolutionize budget management by shifting from fixed capital expenses to more adaptable operational costs. However, the anticipated simplicity and cost savings have, for some, been overshadowed by unexpected complexities and cost. In fact, the number speaks volume, as a staggering 32% of cloud spending is wasted as organizations struggle to optimize their resources. Additionally, 80% of businesses acknowledge that their bottom line has suffered due to inefficient cloud financial management. And it's no surprise then that 57% of businesses report cloud cost management as a constant concern. So, this is where the discipline of FinOps comes into play. It's not just about cutting cost, it's about smartly integrating financial accountability into cloud operations. FinOps brings together technology, business, and finance to ensure that every dollar spent on the cloud is an investment toward innovation and growth. So I'm very excited to welcome our domain expert, Gaurav Sharma, who is the COE lead of DevOps and Cloud at Unthinkable Solutions. He possesses 17 long years of experience and has served almost 50 plus global clients. Today, he'll guide us through the insights on FinOps and how to achieve financial intelligence with technological agility. So get ready to delve into a discussion that can help you gain financial clarity and operational excellence in the cloud. A very warm welcome, Gaurav.
Thank you, Anmol. Glad to be here and looking forward for our discussion.
So am I, Gaurav. So let's start with the basics. Could you please break down the core principles of FinOps for us and also shed some light on why it's becoming essential for cloud cost management?
So let's try to understand that why there is a need of the FinOps. So the company started adopting the cloud, I believe, since 5 to 6 years back. So
Right.
some companies have already been shifted to the cloud, while some companies are still in the journey to adopt cloud in some model, right? So there were some clearly defined objective behind this cloud adoption. So one
Mhm.
was scalability, the second one was agility, so that you can meet your changing business demands. And last but not least, that is to achieve a cost efficiency. So
Right.
if we compare the cloud with the on-premise model, so there is less OPEX, and you need to control your cost for what you are actually using inside the cloud. But during this entire journey, because of the complicated nature of the cloud, so once you are on the cloud, you are spending a number of services of the cloud, and ultimately you found yourself lost in the cloud operating cost model. So
Mhm.
this is where the FinOps come into the picture. And with most of the customer I've worked with, they are struggling with establishing the different controls and measures on their cloud operational cost. So essentially, it helps the customer to bring the cloud cost controls whenever they are operating any kind of workload on the cloud. Now, this is why the FinOps is important. Now,
Right.
coming on to the core pillars of the FinOps. So there are 6 different principles of
Mhm.
the FinOps. It start with the collaboration. So similar to DevOps, within the FinOps, we try to avoid any kind of silos between different teams and different stakeholders who are essentially the key decision makers in the FinOps model. Right. So there are different teams. There is finance team, and there is your engineering teams who are mainly focusing on building products and services for your customers. Then there is business team whose key focus is on the return of investment on the cloud, right? So you try to break down the silos between all these stakeholders,
Mhm.
and then you try to create different kind of controls and measures and bring in the visibility on your cloud expenses, so that as a team, this team can help you to identify the areas where the cloud cost is being spent, and then also to identify the different kind of measures that we can put in place to establish a control over your cloud cost.
Right.
Then business value driven cloud decisions. So we try to make every decision a data driven decisions. So let's try to understand it with an example. As a company owner, you might be using cloud and you might be spending millions of dollars on your cloud on a monthly basis or maybe on an annual basis, right?
Right.
So you don't know that how much return you are actually getting out of that particular cloud platform. So the cloud could be a part of your entire business process. You could be an e-commerce store which is using cloud platform to run your digital solutions, your e-commerce web portal, your mobile applications API, and a number of things. So ultimately cloud is not your service offering, but it is an platform which helps you to run your digital platforms, right? So you actually don't have any kind of visibility that how much you are spending and how much ROI you are getting from that particular cost. So you need to understand that you are generating your revenue from your business and you are spending certain money on the cloud, and how both are linked. So how much money you are spending and how much actually is being converted into the business and what kind of return or revenue you are getting out of it. You need to understand this entire cycle. Only then you can take better decisions that how much you should keep on spending on the cloud, or maybe you need to optimize your cloud operational cost. Then accountability. So in most of the companies, the accountability mostly lies with the finance team, or it's the CFO who are constantly measuring the different operational cost and maybe trying to struggle to control those kind of costs, right? Engineering team, like I said, they are always focused on delivering the great performing products, but they are hardly concerned about the operational cost, right?
Right.
So accountability tells you that every single person who is utilizing maybe the complete part or maybe some part or some services in the cloud should be accountable for running their workload on the cloud, right? That is only possible when you start first creating the visibility that this is what you are using inside the cloud and this is how much it is costing, right? So first you need to give that kind of visibility, and only after that you can make them accountable for the individual cost. So if engineering team is running, let's say a particular product, right, they should be accountable for the entire cloud cost that is occurring because of that particular product. Let's suppose your marketing team is running your public website, right? And again, maybe there are certain other stakeholders which are running some or other solutions on the cloud. So you need to make every single person accountable for their individual application and the associated cloud cost. The next is accessible and timely reporting, right? So like the BI gives you different kind of reports and insights about your business, about your organization. The similar philosophy for creating the insightful reports is also an essential part of the FinOps, right? You need to create certain reports that you can share with your different stakeholders maybe on a monthly basis. Now those reports could be created in different format. So for engineering team, the report can be created, let's say these are the services that you are using, and you can correlate it with the different application component. Like the front end might be costing X amount, the back end might be costing Y amount. Your 10 different APIs might be costing ABC amount individually tagged with each of the APIs. Right?
Yeah.
Now for the marketing team, you can tell them that the last time you run certain marketing campaigns, right? So the entire monthly amount on those marketing campaigns was again the X amount, and then they can correlate it that how much business they have actually generated, how many transaction they have actually able to execute through those campaigns, right? So you need to give relevant reports with the relevant insight to all these stakeholders. So for business executive, it could be related with a performance of the of a particular team, performance of a particular client, performance of a particular project. For engineering team, it should be mapped with their individual product and services. Then you also need to form a centralized teams who is dedicated on the FinOps. And again, when we say dedicated, that does not mean that you need to hire certain specific people and you need to increase your headcount. when we say dedicated people, so that means some stakeholders identified in your company, but they are constantly focusing on establishing the FinOps practices. They would be constantly monitoring the entire cloud cost. They will be constantly monitoring the different kind of reports that we are publishing on a monthly basis, and whatever the actions need to be taken to constantly optimize your operational cost. So this will be a continuous focus for this centralized team, right? So the benefit is, over the period of time, they will be also able to understand that what exactly we are doing and how much cloud cost efficiency we are bringing in. And they will also act as a centralized team who can create certain best practices, and they can also enforce the other teams, other departments to stick to the best practices that are being defined at the organization level. And the last is to utilize the variable cloud cost model. So you know that cloud works on pay as you go or pay for what you have used kind of model. So you don't have to invest the entire cost upfront. Instead, you first identify that which service you want to use in what capacity, and the capacity is also flexible. You can change your cloud service utilization maybe on a daily basis. You can adjust your capacity of the cloud. You can upgrade or downgrade your infrastructure, and accordingly your cost will be also a variable component, right? But while you are making these decisions, you also need to make sure that there are different services which runs in different cost models, right? So you need to have a good understanding of all these services. For example, your engineering team might be just using on-demand instances, right? Now you need to tell them that you can run the similar kind of workload. Maybe instead of using a scalable pool of on-demand instances, you can also start using spot instances, right? They will give you almost similar kind of performance, but the operational cost will be significantly lower. So those kind of insights again need to be passed on to different teams who are using different services, and again you need to take the decisions accordingly. So if you start working on your FinOps journey, so these are the core 6 principles of the FinOps that you need to follow.
Okay. I think that was a thorough breakdown. Thank you for that, Gaurav. And it's really fascinating how FinOps requires such a cultural shift within organizations. Let's say moving from those traditional silos to a more collaborative approach. It really sounds like it's not just about saving costs, but also maximizing the cloud's business value. Now, let's dive a bit deeper into the organizational aspect. So, how can FinOps help the executive team gain proper visibility about their cloud spend?
Right. So the on the visibility side, there are 3 different phases in the FinOps, right? So it starts with the inform, then optimize, and then operate. Let's try to understand, right? So inform is, first you need to tell your different stakeholders this is what you are using, and this is how much we are spending on the cloud in order to run these services. So as of now, your business executive team might not be aware that let's suppose there are 10 different departments, 10 different projects, 10 different customers. So these business focus areas could be different. So for a service company, it could be different customers. For a product company, it could be, let's suppose, different products which are there in the product portfolio. So first you need to identify that what is important for the business executives from a business point of view, or from the service offering point of view. Then you need to first inform the as is state. So as on date, you are running, let's say, 10 different projects, right? So how many active projects you are running as on date, and for all those 10 projects, how much cost you are incurring on the cloud. So those kind of visibility you first need to provide to your executive team through different kind of reports, through different kind of dashboard. But again, it will again start with identify of the right business focus areas. Then the second one is optimize. So once you inform the executive team about this particular inform part, then you move to the second step, that is optimization. Now this optimization is simply taking the direct action without needing anything on the engineering side. For example, when you tell your executive team that these are 10 different projects and the cost associated with each project is XYZ. Now, if they tell you that project number 10 is no longer required, so you can immediately shut down the infrastructure required for the project 10. Or let's suppose if they tell you so that in project number 5 the UAT is somehow paused for, let's say, next 2 months, so you can immediately suspend the infrastructure associated with that particular project, or maybe temporary you can put all the resources in a stop state. Now, like I told you, that cloud gives you the flexibility that you at any point of time you can start using new services, or you can suspend a particular service. So it's pay as you go, or pay on demand service, right? So you need to be very careful that what services are actually required at a given point of time. So all the direct action that are derived from the inform phase, you can invoke in the optimize phase. And the third part, which is the operate. So during the operate, you make all these things as a continuous habit. So you create certain processes where every month you start publishing those kind of report, and then again every month you pick up certain actions that can be directly taken, and then you can define certain processes and habits. For example, whenever there is a new project, you will create certain tax associated with those projects, so that from the next month onward you can also add the billing reports of those projects in your monthly financial reports.
Okay. It seems FinOps provides the lens through which executives can really see what's going on with their dollars spent on the cloud. But visibility is just one part of the equation, right? So, how can we enable the leaders to take necessary actions to optimize or channel their investments in the cloud?
Right. So FinOps is incomplete if you only talk about bringing in the information, visibility through reports, right? So the heart of the FinOps is how you can actually save your cloud operational cost, right? So without optimizing that particular cost, it will not make any sense neither for your different stakeholders nor for your business executives, right? So in order to enable your executive team to take necessary action, you first need to provide them certain mechanisms. So maybe you can create certain SOPs. For example, every month, maybe every week, every 15 days, you can set up certain regular reviews and monitoring meetings. Now, in those review meetings, we can always discuss about what is going on currently, and you can always set the right expectation between different stakeholders. Now, in those meetings, different stakeholders can provide the insight from their point of view, and accordingly you can take that what should be done on the cloud cost. So I give you one example where the business team can tell you that maybe the priority of a particular project is going low, or maybe the portfolio of the customer is shrinking, right? So, and accordingly we can also optimize our investment on the cloud infrastructure for that particular product, right? Let's suppose a particular customer tells you that the next month will be a lean period for us, right? So we'll not be performing any kind of UAT testing. Maybe the entire team will be on the holidays. It could be a Christmas event, right? So you can collect all those kind of insights from different teams, and accordingly you can give your infra team some instruction that they can optimize their infrastructure cost. Similarly, you can also identify that if there is a customer who has make a business contract for, let's say, 2 years or 3 years, then again we can take a decision, can we make certain commitment on the infrastructure side? So whether it is AWS cloud or GCP cloud, so all the clouds offer you different kind of operating model, where if you make certain commitments on the utilization of the infrastructure, they give you very heavy discounting. But again, it required certain commitment on the utilization of the services, and that you can only make when you also have the similar kind of commitment from your customer side. Now, all these kind of points can be discussed in those kind of review meetings, and you can help your business executives to understand all those parameters and how meaningful actions or insights can be driven through those kind of meetings. Then the next one is the governance and policy enforcement, right? So you can also define certain governing policies. For example, for every project, you can make project managers accountable, that they can set certain budgets, they can set certain alarms depending on the operating cost projections at the beginning of the month, right? So that whenever they are operating, because of any reason, if there is any spike, any breach of the defined budgets, they should be notified, right? And there should be clearly defined action that in case if they receive such kind of notification, what action need to be taken by them. For example, they can look into the insight that which service is breaching my previously defined budget, and accordingly they can look into the issue, whether it is a genuine business spike or something is not working right, or maybe it is a service level issue, or maybe someone accidentally has launched certain additional services, right? So these kind of SOPs can be defined for different stakeholders, and again we can define certain documented governance and policies which can be referred by rest of the stakeholders in their day-to-day activities.
That's right, Gaurav. I think actionable insights are indeed crucial for decision making. After all, it's all about giving executives the tools they need to not just see the numbers, but also understand and manage them effectively. Speaking of effectiveness, I am curious about the whole tangible outcomes of these practices. It would be great if you could share some real world case studies where FinOps led to significant cost saving.
So the end objective of FinOps is always to provide different means so that we can control the cloud operational cost, right? From a business executive point of view, providing actionable insight means whatever the data we are presenting in terms of FinOps reports, it should provide them meaningful insight so that they can actually identify that this action need to be taken on a particular area, which can further lead to optimization of the cloud cost. And again, we are not saying it's just the reduction of the cloud cost. Sometimes you have to shift your cloud cost from one business unit to another business unit so that you can improvise or maximize your return of investment. So in some of the cases it will be direct reduction of the cost. In some ways it is the optimization of the cost from one part or one service, from one account, one project to another, so that you can improvise your return of investment. Now if I give you some example from our past experience, so one of the customer with whom we are working from last many years, with the name Chalo. It is a public transport tracking application that streams the real-time location of public transport vehicles, which are generally state-operated bus. Right, so they have onboarded multiple cities, and in every state they are making agreements with the state governments, where they are first onboarding the entire fleet of the state-operated buses onto this particular platform, and after that they are trying to provide Uber and Ola kind of experience to the end user. So anyone who is commuting using city buses can use this particular application. If you are standing on a bus spot, you can use their mobile application and you can see the city bus arriving at a particular bus spot in real time. So this kind of experience they are providing to the end consumer through this particular platform. So now they have registered more than 15,000 public buses across Pan India, and they have covered more than 17 cities. So you can assume that what kind of traffic they would be having on their platform.
Right.
So if I look at their journey, they have just started from couple of cities, and the number of users were less. The initial downloads were less when they were new in the market. So they started with simple VM based cloud ecosystem, and gradually they expanded their platform. They gradually onboarded multiple cities, and their platform keep on growing from last several years. So their cloud expenses also grown significantly. So initially they were running under a startup model with the cloud service provider. So up to certain duration they also receive free benefits from the cloud service provider, but beyond that their cloud operational cost increased to a big volume, right? So in this entire journey, what we observed that initially the entire focus was on the customer experience, how we can establish our product in the market. That was the sole focus. So they were not much bothered about the infrastructure cost, the marketing cost, and those kind of things. But when you reach to a certain stage, then you have to look into the triage of the business, that is cost, experience, and the return of investment, right? So at certain point of time, they were completely lost from the cloud operational cost point of view. So they were just getting the big amount of the cloud operational cost every month, and they were using multiple cloud services, but they were completely clueless that what are the areas where we can optimize our cost. So whenever they were onboarding a new city, they were creating a separate set of infrastructure. The cost was growing big. And in this kind of model, when you offer these kind of services to the state government, so of course your share in the revenue is significantly small, right? So at a particular point of time, you need to strike a balance between your investment versus the revenue you are getting from this particular service. So we help the customer to first identify that what are the important cost centers for them. So for them, the important cost center is every state, because their business agreement and the contractual agreement, the operational rates and all those kind of things are different from state to state. So whatever the agreement they are doing with the state one might not be similar for the another state. So what we suggested them, that let's start tagging your entire infrastructure from city to city point of view, so that you can adjust that how much cost you are getting from one kind of city and what kind of performance, maximum performance we can offer to the end consumer, staying within those business limits. So this is how we started creating segregation between the entire infrastructure. We also discussed that what is your pilot period. So it's not the day one when you go live with the entire platform for a new city or a new state. So whenever they onboard a new state, even within that particular state, they gradually onboard each city one by one. So when they onboard one particular city, again within a city, they onboard different buses one by one, right? And this is the gradual approach which they were following. So what we suggested, that instead of going large with the entire infrastructure, let's start with a onboarding kind of infrastructure which we can run with smaller capacity, smaller configuration, and maybe we can control the onboarding cost. When you are done with the onboarding of the entire fleet, maybe then we can add the additional resources to take care of the production traffic that is coming to your platform. So these kind of decisions we were able to execute only when we provided these kind of insight to their business executive team. Previous to that, they were completely clueless. So it rarely happens that business executive teams sit with the infrastructure team, but in the cloud era, we can make this happen with the FinOps approaches. And believe me that we were able to save a costing of 18% over the period of 6 to 8 months. And their annual cloud spend was around 500 million US dollars. So you can just imagine that how much cost saving we brought on the table by the FinOps practices.
Right. So that was an impressive example with impressive figures. It really underlines the impact of FinOps on an organization's bottom line. It's impressive to see how these strategies can lead to tangible results. But as we know, change isn't always smooth. What are the some common hurdles companies face when adopting FinOps, and how can they overcome those challenges?
Right. So I believe the biggest hurdle is the mindset, right? Everything is in front of you. Whatever you are spending, of course, in the cloud, the billing model works in a monthly invoicing model. So at the end of the month, you receive invoice for all the services or all the infrastructure that you have used, right? So you are having the access of the entire data, how much you are paying on a monthly basis, how much revenue you are generating. But the biggest hurdle is you are missing the connecting bridge, right? You don't know that how to map the different business component within the cloud, right? So split of the cost and visibility into the data, this is the biggest hurdle. Without those insight, even if you are aware of the situation that ultimately you are incurring losses, you cannot take any decisions. You cannot simply reach out to your cloud operational team and you cannot tell them that shut down these two instances without knowing the impact of the same. And this is something which you want to leave to the infrastructure team, that how they want to optimize. But ultimately, what are the areas where you want to bring down your operational costs? This is a business decisions. So the first hurdle is the visibility of the data, the missing insightful reports. So you always have the monthly invoice, but the invoice only tells you that you have consumed these services in this much of capacity and this much amount you have to pay. But no cloud gives you the report which actually tells you that out of all the business cost center, this particular cost centers cost you X amount of the entire operational cost, right? So this is something where they need help of some expert who can sit with the customers, understand their business cost centers, help them to tag and classify their entire cloud infrastructure into those business cost centers, and provide them the invoice which is different from the default invoice. So we generally call them custom billing reports that we typically create for our customers. Now, with the help of those custom billing reports, the business executives are able to understand the different distribution of the cloud cost, in which department or in which particular business unit how much they are spending on the cloud. So just to understand, let's suppose if I'm running a company, I'm getting one monthly invoice on AWS. So AWS doesn't just tell me that you are using 10 different servers, two databases, and some storage services. And this is your total operational cost. Let's assume that it is 25,000 US dollar, right? Now, if I know that it is a costly affair for me, and if I want to reduce my cost, I don't know that how much of this entire cost is being consumed by which department. For me, what matters is I know that marketing team is something which is generating business for me. So even if I am spending certain amount in my marketing team, it will in long term it will give me certain return of investment. But let's suppose I'm completely unaware that there are a couple of applications which are being used by HR department. Now HR team is not generating any kind of revenue for me. So if I have to first reach out to any team to reduce my cloud operational cost, so it will be those teams which are not directly generating any kind of revenue for me. So
Right.
first I need that data which clearly tells me that out of 25,000 US dollar, your 15% cost is being spent on HR application, the rest is being spent on marketing team, development team, XYZ, right? After having this visibility, I may be able to understand that okay, why we are spending this much amount on the HR application, what kind of application we are running on the cloud, which are consuming this much of cost, and then maybe it can lead me to further decision making to either stop those services or maybe to opt out for cheaper third party services, or maybe whatever the possible instances are. So the first hurdle is to understand your cost breakdown. The second one is to get the meaningful insight where you can take the action. And the third one is the blocker, I believe, in the FinOps is how you can actually make this process continuous. So most of the company begin their FinOps journey, they are excited about it, and initially they are able to achieve certain cost optimization by certain amount. But after period of time, they are again get back on the initial track. They started focusing on the business part. The team they have onboarded to perform the FinOps activity again diluted it, and everyone goes back to the initial track. So we have to make it a continuous habit that even beyond a particular limit, if we are not able to achieve further cost optimization, we should constantly focusing on the FinOps practices to improvise those practices, so that at least if we are not able to achieve additional cost saving, we can at least keep control the ongoing operational cost, right? So not letting your operational cost increases or not letting your cloud cost increases is also one kind of saving, right? So you can make it a habit for the entire team, and it should be in your DNA that whenever you are adding a new service, whenever you are launching new infrastructure on the cloud, it should always be vetted and approved by all the stakeholders, whether it is your finance team, business team, why it is important, how much it is important, and we should be aware that there is a limit in terms of performance, and this is where we need to stop.
Great insights, Gaurav. I think it's reassuring to hear that there are strategies to navigate these hurdles. And I would agree that having the right mindset and tools goes a long way in smoothing out the FinOps adoption process. Now, if we look ahead, like as per you, what does the future look like for FinOps?
So the future of FinOps is quite promising. Even if you look at the last decade, most of the companies have already migrated to the cloud, and some companies are still under the migration part, where either the entire application or some of their workloads they are running in the cloud. And I'm again talking about both public and private companies. So in the next coming few years, the cloud utilization by all the companies are going to increase for sure. And nowadays, even the companies are exploring the hybrid approach, where instead of just using one cloud, they are using multiple clouds, and some part of their application is on one cloud and rest of the part they are running on multiple clouds, right? So with this scattered approach, they are again try to bring in the efficiency in terms of better performance, but again they are also struggling in managing the cloud cost in this particular hybrid model. So there are some reports and data available which states that uh, more than 20% of the cloud cost is being wasted by most of the company, right? So why this particular cost is being wasted? Because sometimes what happens that you increase your infrastructure, or let's suppose you use a particular service, which after a period of time is no longer required. So some of the examples are, let's say, there are unused elastic block storage which are lying in your account and you are not aware of it, right? It is not directly impacting any of your application, but it's like you are completely unaware of it, right? Similarly, there are certain elastic IPs which are not being used. You might have defined certain auto scaling policies in your account, and it was required maybe at a particular period of time, but again with the changing uses pattern, they might not be required anymore. So you need to look into those kind of data, and most of the companies are not paying attention into those areas, and that is why they end up investing a lot of their resources and paying for those services which they are not using. One of the classical example is in last 5 to 6 years, many companies have created a large pool of data in the cloud. It could be the end customer uploaded data, or it could be their application data. But honestly speaking, 80% of the data is not required in real time. One of the example is when you download your banking statement. So typically the banking application does not allow you to download the statement beyond 12 months. So
Right.
it's not that they have lost your data, but they know that that particular data is not frequently required. So you need to identify those kind of use cases, and accordingly you can take certain steps. For example, maybe you can archive the historical data. And again, there are different type of storage services being provided. There are different type of storage classes are being provided from the different cloud service provider. So you need to look at your data, look at your business use cases, and accordingly you need to take a decision that let's start using a different type of storage class for one particular set of data which is not required, or maybe we can archive a particular data. So understanding the different kind of services offered by the cloud, and whether your business is using the right service at right point of time in right capacity or not, that is the key point for the FinOps, right? So this is a continuous habit, and it is required, and most of the companies, believe me, are struggling. They don't have any insight, they are completely clueless. Even if they are taking certain decisions, so those are surface level decisions. So if we look from an engineering point of view, the DBA again, whenever they are making any kind of changes, or if the developer, if they are writing any kind of code, so they are completely unaware that how much cost, how much infrastructure cost is going to increase post the commitment of that particular code, right? So that particular piece of code maybe start utilizing more RAM or more CPU, and ultimately it will increase the operational cost. So in every department, in all these stakeholders, this kind of visibility is not there, at least in the current state of the FinOps. And that is why I believe that FinOps, once we actually disclose the true power of the FinOps, when we provide this kind of visibility to your engineering team, to your business executive team, to your finance team, right? Then they will actually realize that how much they could have saved in the past, or at least how much they can save now onwards. It will automatically define the importance of the FinOps for everyone.
Yeah, and I think it's exciting to think about the role of advancing technology in the evolution of FinOps. With the cloud becoming even more integral to business operations, the expertise and the approaches you have described are likely to become even more valuable. Thank you for sharing your insights with us today, Gaurav. It's been an enlightening conversation, and I am sure our listeners will find it equally valuable as they navigate their cloud financial management journeys.
Thanks, Anmol. And I'm always excited to talk more about the FinOps because, with my experience, and whenever we sit with the customer, and the excitement that we see on the face of the customer is specifically the business executive from the customer side. So they are always wondered that these are the immediate activities that they can perform. It's not like a business plan that they need to first work upon, and after that they have to wait for the success or result of it. It's the direct action that they can take basis on the data. So just by providing them this kind of visibility and helping them to achieve this kind of efficiency always bring excitement for all the stakeholders, and this is the best part, and we are always excited to talk more about it.
Surely, Gaurav, we'll definitely have you back for another engaging discussion. And to our listeners, that's a wrap for today's episode. I hope today's discussion has broadened your horizon of knowledge on integrating financial accountability with technological operations. The journey towards financial intelligence and operational excellence may seem complex, but with the right approach and expertise, it's definitely achievable. Remember, the cloud is not just a cost center, it's a powerful driver of innovation and growth when managed wisely. Embrace the principles of FinOps and you'll be on your way to making every dollar count. So, if you enjoyed this episode, don't forget to subscribe to our podcast so that you never miss out on the latest tech insights. We would love to hear your thoughts through the comment section below. Until next time, keep listening to the Unthinkable Tech Podcast.